The dressing room smelled like stale champagne and regret. I sat in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. 24 years old. And already the light had drained from my eyes. The girl who had once dreamed of stadiums and screaming crowds was gone, replaced by this hollow shell with perfect makeup and a smile that never reached her eyes. My hands trembled as I reached for the diamond necklace Ethan had given me for our third anniversary. The diamonds were real. I'd had them appraised. But the love they were supposed to symbolize, that had been counterfeit from the very beginning. Raven, are you ready? Chloe's voice floated through the door, sweet as poison. The press is waiting. They want to see the happy couple. Happy couple. The words tasted like ash in my mouth that I stood up, smoothing down the crimson gown that had been selected for me by a stylist I never chose. Everything about my life had been curated, controlled, manufactured. The music I wrote, the image I projected, the mariage I endured. All of it was a performance. And I was the only one who didn't know the script. When I opened the door, Chloe was standing there with that practiced smile, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders in waves that must have taken 2 hours to achieve. She was my best friend, my confidant, the sister I never had. Or so I had believed. You look stunning, she said, reaching out to adjust the necklace. Her fingers brushed against my collarbone, and I felt nothing. No RMTH. No connection. Just the mechanical touch of someone going through the motions. Thanks, I replied, my voice flat. Where's Ethan? He's already in the ballroom. You know how he hates waiting. She laughed, a tinkling sound that used to make me feel light. Now it grated against my nerves like sandpaper that we walked down the corridor together, the way we had done 100 times before. Chloe's heels clicked in perfect rhythm with mine, a synchronized dance we had perfected over years of friendship. Except it wasn't friendship. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and I had been the unwitting student that the ballroom of the Sterling Grand Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers, and the kind of wealth that made ordinary people feel small. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. My album had gone platinum, and Ethan had just been named partner at his law firm. We were the power couple, the golden children of the entertainment industry. But as I stepped through the doors, something was wrong. The whispers sta root immediately, a low hum of speculation that rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. People were sta ring, not with admiration but with pity. Some of them looked almost gleeful, like vultures circling a dying animal. That I scanned the room for Ethan, my husband of 4 years, the man I had sacrificed everything for. I had given up my solo career to write songs for other artists, so he could pursue his ambitions. I had poured my earnings into his campaign for partner, paying for the right parties, the right connections, the right image. I had believed in him when no one else did. He was standing in the stage, looking handsome in his custom-tailored tuxedo. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, his smile wide and confident. He was the picture of success, and standing next to him was a woman in a vintage dress that I recognized immediately. That my mother, Evelyn Hart, had never approved of my career. She had called it vulgaire, unseemly, beneath a woman of proper breeding. She had wanted me to marry a banker, settle down in the suburbs, and produce grandchildren. When I chose Ethan instead, she had cut me off completely. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. And now she was here, standing next to my husband, her hand resting on his arm like he belonged to her. What is she doing here? I whispered to Chloe. Chloe's smile widened, and for the first time, I saw it for what it was. Not friendship, but triumph. Oh, didn't Ethan tell you he thought it was time for a family reunion? The pieces sta root clicking into place, a cold, grim puzzle that I had been too blind to solve. The late nights Ethan had been working, the hushed phone calls, the way Chloe had sta root coincidentally showing up wherever he was. Ethan spotted me and raised his glass in a toast. There she is, my beautiful wife, the genius behind the music. Everyone, please give it up for Raven Hart. The applause was scattered. Most people were still whispering, their eyes derooting between me and the woman on Ethan's arm. I felt like I was walking through a nightmare, every step heavier than the last. What's going on, Ethan? I asked, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. Why is my mother here? He gave me that smile, the one that used to make my knees weak. Now it looked like a mask, a plastic imitation of human emotion. We have something to tell you, suivez art. Why don't you come up here? I walked toward the stage, my gown trailing behind me like a funeral shroud. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run, to escape whatever trap was closing around me. But I had learned to ignore my instincts. That was my greatest mistake. Ethan took my hand, his grip firm and possessive. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is a celebration, not just of Raven's success, but of new beginnings. New beginnings. The phrase sent ice through my veins. He turned to me, his eyes gleaming with something I had never seen before, something cold and calculating. Raven, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About our marriage. About our future. And I've come to a difficult decision. The room went silent. I could hear my own heartbeat, a frantic drum against my ribs. I'm filing for divorce, he said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I heard gasps from the crowd, a few muffled exclamations of shock. But most people just watched, their faces hungry for drama. Ethan, what are you talking about? I tried to pull my hand away, but he held on tight. We can talk about this. Privately. There's nothing to talk about, he said, his voice cold. I've been miserable for years, Raven. You're never around. You're always working, always writing, always chasing some impossible dream. I need someone who will actually be there for me. My mother stepped forward, her hand on my arm. He's right, Raven. You've neglected your marriage. You've neglected your family. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. You haven't spoken to me in 3 years, I said, my voice rising. You don't get to stand here and pretend you see about my marriage. I see about the family name, she said, her eyes harrowed, and you've been dragging it through the mud. Sleeping with your producer, running around with that scandalous band of yours. It's time someone took control. I never slept with anyone, I said, the words coming out in a rush. That was a rumor. A lie spread by. Chloe stepped forward, her face a mask of fake sympathy. It wasn't a lie, Raven. I saw you. At the studio, with Americus. I tried to tell Ethan, but he didn't want to believe it. My heart stopped. Americus was my producer, a 68-year-old married man who had been like a father to me. The rumors about us had sta root 2 years ago, and I had never been able to trace their source. Now I knew that you. I breathed sta ring at Chloe. You spread those rumors. She didn't even flinch. I told the truth. You were always too close to him. Always staying late. Always. I was writing the songs that made you money. I screamed. I was the one who gave you a career. You had nothing before me, Chloe. Nothing. And this is how you repay me. A low murmur ran through the crowd. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between me and Chloe. Don't talk to her like that. She's my fiancée now. The word hit me like a physical blow. Your fiancé. We've been together for 2 years, Ethan said. 2 years of hiding, of sneaking around, of waiting for the right moment to tell you. We're in love, Raven. It's time you accepted that. 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of living with a man who had already checked out of our marriage. 2 years of pouring my heart into a relationship that was nothing but a convenience for him. I looked at Chloe, truly looked at her, and saw the truth written in every line of her face. She had always been jealous of me, of my talent, my success, my ability to captivate audiences. She had smiled to my face while plotting behind my back. I gave you everything, I said, my voice cracking. My friendship, my trust, my career. I put you in my band, I wrote songs for you, I made you a star. And this is how you repay me. She didn't answer. She just smiled, that beautiful, terrible smile that had fooled me for so long. That my mother stepped forward again, her hand extended. Give me the necklace, Raven. It's a family heirloom, and you don't deserve to wear it. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You disowned me. You said I was dead to you. And now you want the jewelry. It's been passed down for generations, she said. It belongs in the family. You're no longer part of this family. Ethan pulled my hand toward him, his fingers digging into my wrist. The necklace, Raven. Don't make a scene. I looked at the three of them. My husband, my best friend, my mother. 3 people who had been supposed to love me. 3 people who had been using me all along. You can have the necklace, I said, unclasping it with trembling fingers. You can have the money, the house, the fame. You can have everything. But you'll never have my talent. That's mine. And when I'm gone, you'll realize what you've lost. I threw the necklace at Ethan's feet and turned to leave. The crowd parut, their eyes full of pity and contempt. I heard Chloe's voice behind me, sharp and triumphant. Don't worry, Ethan. She'll come crawling back. She always does. She's nothing without us. The words echoed in my ears as I walked out of the ballroom, past the security guards, past the journalists who had come to capture the drama. I walked out of the hotel and into the cold night air, my gown soaked with rain that was just rooting to fall. That I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. Away from them, away from the lies, away from the life that had been built on a foundation of betrayal. That the streets were empty, the rain coming down right now. I walked for what felt like hours, my heels clicking against the wet pavement, my mind a whirlwind of memories and regrets. The sacrifices I had made, the love I had given, the trust one had extended, all of it wasted. I stopped at a crosswalk waiting for the light to change. The street was deserted, the city asleep. And then I heard it. The roar of an engine, the screech of tires, the blinding flash of headlights. I turned just in time to see the SAR. A black sedan with tinted windows. It was coming straight for me, accelerating, not stopping. In that split second I saw the driver's face. It was Ethan's driver, the one who had been working for him for years. The impact was instant. A bone-shattering crunch that sent me flying through the air. I hit the pavement hard, my body broken, my vision fading. I could hear footsteps, voices, someone calling my name. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Lying there in the cold rain, ring up at the gray sky. I felt the last vestiges of what RMTH drain from my body. I had been betrayed by everyone I loved. My husband, my best friend, my mother. They had stolen my career, my reputation, and now my life. And in that final moment, as the darkness closed in, I made a promise to myself. If there was any justice in this world, if there was any mercy in the universe, I would come back. I would get another chance. And when I did, I would make them pay debt, every lie, every betrayal, every moment of pain and humiliation. I would repay it all with interest. The darkness swallowed me whole. And then, I opened my eyes. The light was blinding. I was lying on something soft, something that smelled faintly of lavender. My body felt different, younger, lighter. The aches and pains that had plagued me for years were gone, replaced by a vitality I hadn't felt since my early 20s. I sat up slowly, looking around. I was in a bedroom. A familiar bedroom. My bedroom, from 5 years ago, when I was still living with my mother before she kicked me out. The walls were pink, the furniture was cheap, and the posters on the wall were of bands I had loved when I was a teenager. My eyes landed on the calendar on the nightstand. It was dated 5 years ago. The day before I met Ethan. I scrambled out of bed, my heart pounding. I ran to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. It was me, but younger, brighter, untouched by the years of abuse and betrayal. My face was fresh, my eyes clear, my hair a wild tangle of curls that I hadn't had since I was 19. I was back. Somehow, impossibly, I was back. The memories came flooding in. The music I had written, the deals I had made, the mistakes I had committed. I knew exactly where I had gone wrong. I knew every manipulation, every lie, every betrayal that was waiting for me. But this time, I knew the game. I walked back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what had happened. I had died in the rain, murdered by the man I had trusted. And now I had been given a second chance. A chance to change everything. A chance to protect myself. A chance to get revenge. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Chloe. Hey bestie. He wrote you're going to that showcase tonight. Wanna meet up for coffee first? I have the most amazing news. I read at the message, a cold smile spreading across my face. The showcase. That was where I was going to meet Ethan. Where I was going to fall in love with him. where I was going to start the chain of events that would lead to my death. This time, I knew what was coming that I typed my response. Sure, Chloe. I can't wait to hear all about it. I put the phone down and looked at my reflection in the mirror. The innocent, naive girl who had been so easily fooled was gone. In her place was someone older, a writer, forged in the fire of betrayal. I know what you're planning, I whispered to the mirror. I know what you're going to take from me. But this time, you don't get to win. I grabbed my bag and route getting ready for the showcase. I had a lot of work to do. I needed to rewrite my future, one step at a time. I needed to build an empire, protect my talent, and destroy everyone who had tried to destroy me. And at the top of my list was Ethan Price, the man who had murdered me with a smile on his face that I had no idea, yet that a certain reclusive billionaire had been watching the showcase from the shadows. Julian Sterling, the man whose family owned half the city, had seen something in my performance that night that had changed his life. He would seek me out, offer me a partnership and help me build something greater than I had ever imagined, but that was still to come. For now I had a boyfriend to avoid, a best friend to expose, and a mother to cut off. The game was about to begin. And this time, I was playing to win. I walked out of my bedroom, ready to face the world, and smiled. Chapter 1 and the coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and desperation. The kind of place where struggling artists went to pretend they weren't struggling. I sat in the corner booth, my fingers wrapped around a lukewarm latte I had no intention of drinking, and watched Chloe Dawson walk through the door. She was radiant. That was the word people always used for her, and I had always agreed. Her blonde hair was perfectly highlighted, her skin dewy and fresh, her dress a flirty little sundress that cost more than I made in a month. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. And in my past life, I had felt so inadequate next to her. Now I saw the cracks. The way she scanned the room before she smiled, cataloging who was watching. The way she adjusted her posture to maximize her angles. The way her eyes flickered to my outfit, a simple black dress I had bought on sale, and registered satisfaction that she was beautiful, yes. But her beauty was a weapon, and I had finally learned how to defend myself. Raven. She rushed toward me. RMS extended for a hug. Oh my God. I am so excited for tonight. This is going to be our big break. I can feel it. I let her hug me, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, stiff and unyielding, until she pulled away with a confused little frown. Are you okay? She asked, sitting down across from me. You look different. Different how? I asked, my voice flat. She studied me for a moment, her brow furrowed. I don't know. You seem calmer, more put together, she laughed, a nervous little trill. Usually you're a nervous wreck before a showcase. I'm the one who has to talk you down. I smiled and it felt like a razor blade in my mouth. I had a realization last night, Chloe. About what's really important. Ooh, what was it? She leaned forward, eager for gossip. Take care of yourself first. Trust no one. And never, ever let anyone use you for their own gain. She blinked, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Unease. She recovered quickly, her smile snapping back into place like a well-oiled mask. That's so deep, Raven. You really have changed. I have, I agreed. So what's this news you wanted to tell me? Her face lit up. And I knew what was coming before she said it. I had lived this moment before, though I hadn't recognized its significance then. I met someone, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. At that party you couldn't go to last week. He's amazing, Raven. He's a lawyer, super smart, super ambitious. And he was asking about you. My stomach turned. In my past life, I had been thrilled. A friend's connection. A potential new contact. I had encouraged Chloe to introduce us, never suspecting that she had already route laying the groundwork for my destruction. Really? I said, forcing curiosity into my voice. What's his name? Ethan Price, she said, the name rolling off her tongue like honey. He's with Sterling Hart and Associates, one of the top firms in the city, and he's so charming, Raven. You'd love him. In my past life I had been flattered. I had agreed to let her set up a meeting, believing she was doing me a favor. Now I saw the trap for what it was. Chloe had been scouting for me, but not for my benefit. She had been looking for a man she could use to control me, to bleed me dry, to keep me small and dependent and manageable. I'm not really looking for a relationship right now, I said. My music comes first. Her eyes widened in surprise. But Raven, you're always saying you want to find love. You've been single for so long. I want a career first, I interrupted. The showcase tonight is my priority. Everything else can wait. She frowned, clearly thrown off balance. In my past life I had jumped at the chance to meet Ethan. I had been so desperate for love, so hungry for validation. Now I was starving for something else entirely. Revenge. Fine, she said, pouting slightly. But promise me you'll at least think about it. I really think you two would hit it off. Sure, Chloe. I said, the lie easy on my tongue. I'll think about it. The showcase was held at the Lyric, a mid-sized venue that had launched the careers of countless artists. I had performed here many times in my past life, always with Ethan watching from the wings, always feeling like I was performing for him. Tonight, I was performing for myself. Chloe and I arrived separately. She had insisted on going EARLY to network, which I knew was code for scouting the room for useful people. I took my time, walking through the backstage array, letting the familiarity of it wash over me. I remembered every detail of this night. The nervous energy of the performers, the polished but insincere compliments from the talent scouts, the way my hands had trembled when I took the stage. I had been so young, so naive, so desperate to prove myself. Not anymore. I found a quiet corner near the stage and root my vocal warm-ups, my voice filling the empty space. I had spent years honing my craft, writing songs that made people weep and dance and fall in love. I had been the unsung hero of the music industry, the ghostwriter behind a dozen hits, the voice that gave other artists their careers. And I had given it all away for free. No more. Raven. There you are. Chloe Ape read, breathless and flushed, dragging a tall, dark-haired man behind her. I found him. This is Ethan, the lawyer I was telling you about. He was handsome, I had to admit. That was part of his power, the way he could disarm people with that charming smile. He looked at me with exactly the right amount of interest, exactly the right amount of admiration. He knew how to make a woman feel seen, and in my past life, I had fallen for it completely. Raven, he said, extending his hand. Chloe has told me so much about you. She says you're going to be a star. Chloe talks a lot, I said, shaking his hand briefly. I hope she didn't oversell me. Not at all. She said you're the most talented person she knows. And I can see why. You have presence. He was smooth, I'd give him that. He knew exactly what to say, exactly how to tilt his head, exactly how to hold my gaze just a moment too long. He was a predator in a suit, and I had been his prey. Thank you, I said, pulling my hand back. I should probably get ready. I'm on in 20 minutes. Of course, he said, stepping aside. I'll be watching from the front row. Break a leg. Chloe grabbed his arm, her fingers lingering a moment too long. I'll show you to your seat, she said, her voice full of false cheer. I watched them walk away, his hand resting on the small of her back, the way he leaned in to whisper something in her ear. In my past life I had been too blind to see it. Now it was unmistakable. They were already together, already plotting, already building the lies that would destroy me. I turned away and focused on my warm-ups. I had a song to perform, and I was going to make it count. The stage lights were blinding, exactly as I remembered them. The crowd was a blur of faces, all of them watching, all of them waiting. I took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight, my heart steady and calm. I had chosen a different song than I had in my past life. The original version had been a sweet, hopeful ballad about new beginnings. But tonight, I was feeling something else entirely. I root to sing, my voice filling the room. It was an original composition, something I had written in my previous life but never performed. A song about betrayal and heartbreak and the strength it takes to survive. The lyrics were raw, visceral, the melody haunting and beautiful. The crowd fell silent. I could see the emotion on their faces, the way they leaned forward, caught up in the story I was telling. This was my power, the thing no one could take from me. My voice, my words, my music. As I hit the final note, the applause exploded. It was louder than I remembered, more enthusiastic. People were standing, cheering, calling my name. I saw Chloe in the front row, her face frozen in a tight smile. Ethan was clapping, his eyes locked on me with something that looked like genuine interest. But it was the man in the back of the room who caught my attention. That he was tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's cars. His dark hair was slicked back, his jaw sharp and ungulaire, his eyes intense and unblinking. He wasn't clapping. He was just watching, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. That I recognized him instantly. Julian Sterling. The billionaire heir to the Sterling Empire. The man who owned half the city. The reclusive genius who had built a media empire from nothing. In my past life, I had never met him. He was a ghost, a legend, a figure of myth who only Ape read in the pages of Forbes. But he was here, watching me. The moment stretched, electric and strange. Then he stood up, turned, and walked out of the venue without a word. Raven. That was incredible. Chloe rushed the stage, pulling me into a hug. You were amazing. Everyone loved you. I let her hug me, my eyes still fixed on the door where Julian Sterling had read. What had he been doing here? Why had he left so suddenly? Raven, hello. Chloe waved a hand in front of my face. Where did you go? Nowhere, I said, shaking off the thought. Just processing. You're going to be a star, Ethan said, Ape ring at Chloe's side. I mean it. I've never seen anything like that. He was looking at me with those dark, intense eyes. And in my past life, I would have melted. Now I saw the calculation behind the praise. He was already measuring me, already planning his next move. Thank you, I said. Why? I have another song to practice. Excuse me. I walked away before they could respond, my heart pounding. I could feel their eyes on my back, could feel the weight of their intentions pressing down on me. But I didn't look back. I had a plan, and it didn't include them. The dressing room was empty when I arrived. I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, clear calm. That I had done it. I had performed my truth, planted the seeds of my independence, and root the process of building something new. But there was so much more to do. I needed to secure a record deal on my own terms. I needed to build a network of allies who would support me, not use me. I needed to find a way to expose Chloe and Ethan before they could do any more damage. And I needed to figure out what Julian Sterling wanted with me. That a knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find a young woman in a sharp blazer, a lanier round her neck that identified her as a representative of Sterling Media. Miss Hart, Mr. Sterling would like to see you. He has an offer he believes you'll find interesting. I read at her, my mind racing. In my past life, this moment had never happened. I had left the showcase gone home with Ethan, root the long, slow descent into my destruction. But now the timeline had shifted. Something new was emerging. Lead the way, I said. That she guided me through a maze of corridors, past the main stage and into a private lounge reserved for VIPs. The room was elegant, minimal, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. And in the center of it, standing with his back to me, was Julian Sterling. That he turned as I entered, his dark eyes sweeping over me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He was even more striking up close, his features sharp and symmetrical, his presence commanding and magnetic. Raven Hart, he said, his voice a low rumble. I've been watching you. I know, I said, my voice steady. I saw you in the audience. He smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of his lips. You have a remarkable voice. And a remarkable talent for storytelling. I've heard a lot of singers in my time, but very few songwriters. You're the real deal. Thank you, I said, not letting my guard down. But I'm sure you didn't summon me here just to give me a compliment. He laughed, a rich, sound that was completely unexpected. You're direct. I like that. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Please. I sat, keeping my posture straight, my eyes locked on his. He took the seat across from me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I'm launching a new label, he said. Sterling Records. I want it to be different from the usual corporate machine. I want to work with artists who have something to say, who have a unique vision. And I want you to be my first signing. My heart stuttered. In my past life, I had signed with a major label that had exploited me, taken my songs, and left me with nothing. But Sterling Records was different. Julian Sterling was a man of integrity, even if he was ruthless in business. He didn't steal from his artists. He invested in them. Why me, I asked. There are a dozen other artists here tonight who have more experience, more connections, more buzz. Because they don't have what you have, he said simply. They don't have that fire in their eyes. I saw it when you were on stage. You're not just performing, you're surviving. And I want to build something with someone who knows how to fight. I read at him, my mind racing. This was the opportunity one had dreamed of in my past life. The chance to control my own career, to build my own empire. But it also meant entangling myself with a man I barely knew. A man whose motives I couldn't fully trust. You want me to sign with you, I said slowly. What's the catch? No catch, he said. I want a partner, not an asset. You'll have creative control, a generous cut of the profits, and full ownership of your masters. I just want first right of refusal on everything you produce for the next 5 years. It was an incredible offer. In my past life, I would have signed immediately, too eager to question the details. But this time I was cautious. I'll need to see the contract, I said. I'll need time to think about it. Of course, he said, pulling a card from his jacket and handing it to me. Take all the time you need. But don't take too long. I have a feeling you're going to be very busy very soon. I took the card, my fingers brushing against his. The contact sent a jolt through me, a spark of something unexpected. I pulled my hand back quickly, my heart racing. I'll be in touch, I said, standing up. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Sterling. Julian, he corrected. And the opportunity is mutual. I have a feeling we're going to do great things together. I walked out of the lounge, my head spinning. The night had taken an unexpected turn, but it was a good one. I had planted the seeds of a new future. A future where I controlled my own destiny. A future where Chloe and Ethan couldn't touch me. But as I walked out of the venue, a familiar voice called my name. Raven. Wait up. It was Chloe, running toward me with Ethan close behind. She was breathless, her face flushed. Where did you go? We were looking for you everywhere. Just taking some air. I said smoothly. What's up? Ethan and I wanted to invite you to dinner, she said. To celebrate your amazing performance. You have to come. Please, I looked at her, then at Ethan, whose eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. In my past life, I had gone to that dinner, and it had been the beginning of my end. I had fallen for Ethan's charm, Chloe's fake friendship, and the trap they had so fully laid up. But this time, I had a choice. I can't, I said, holding up Julian's road. I have plans. Chloe's eyes widened as she recognized the Sterling logo. Wait, is that a business meeting? I said, tucking the card into my bag. A very important one. Maybe some other time. I walked away before they could respond, my heels clicking against the pavement with purpose. I could feel their eyes on my back, could feel the fury and frustration radiating from Chloe's smile. But I didn't see I had made my choice. And I was never going to make a mistake again. The Sterling Media Building towered above the city, like a glass monument to ambition. I stood in the lobby, watching the polished marble floors and the sleek reception desk, and felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. In my past life, I had never set foot in this place. I had been too small, too insignificant, too trapped in the web Ethan had spun around me. Now I was here and I was ready to claim what was mine. Julian's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Meredith, guided me through security and into a private elevator that required a fingerprint scan to operate. The ride was silent, the numbers climbing higher and higher until we reached the 47th floor. The office was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, the skyline stretching out like a promise. The furniture was modern and minimalist, all clean lines and muted colors. And behind a massive desk, looking like he had just stepped off the cover of a magazine, sat Julian Sterling. He stood as I entered, his eyes scanning me with that same unnerving intensity. Raven, Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation, I said, taking the seat he offered. I've been thinking about your offer. And I want to accept. But I have conditions. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. Conditions most people would be thrilled to sign with a major label, no questions asked. I'm not most people, I said flatly. And I've read the wholeheartedly way that contracts are only as good as the people who sign them. I want full transparency. I want to see every clause, every loophole, every piece of fine print. And I want a clause that protects my creative rights in perpetuity. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with renewed interest. You've been burned before. More than you know, I said. And I'm not going to let it happen again. He was silent for a long moment, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. Then he smiled, and it was a genuine smile, while and approving. I like you, Raven. You're not just talented. You're smart. That's a recombination. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a thick document, sliding it across the polished surface tower me. Here's the contract. Take it home. Read every word. If you have questions, I'll answer them. If you want changes, we'll negotiate. I meant what I said last night. I want a partner, not a puppet. I took the contract, my fingers gripping the paper tightly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said, his eyes glinting. Wait until you see the advance. Then you can thank me. I almost smiled. Almost. But I caught myself, forcing my expression to remain neutral. I couldn't let myself get too comfortable. Couldn't let myself trust too easily. That was the lesson I had learned in the fire of my past life. I'll be in touch, I said, standing up. By the end of the week. He nodded, his eyes never leaving me. I look forward to it. And Raven, watch your back. There are a lot of people in this industry who would love to tear you down. I know, I said, and walked out of the office. The ride home was quiet, the city blurring past the taxi window. I clutched the contract to my chest like a lifeline, my mind racing with possibilities. This was the beginning. The first step toward my new life. But as the taxi pulled up to my apartment building, I saw a familiar figure waiting on the steps. My mother. Evelyn Hart was dressed in her Sunday best, a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her makeup flawless. She looked like she was attending a board meeting, not confronting the daughter she had disowned. Raven, she said, rising as I approached. We need to talk. I stopped a few feet away, my hands tightening around the contract. What are you doing here? I heard about the showcase, she said. I heard you did well. Very well, actually. A friend of mine was in the audience, and she said you were the best performer of the night. That's nice, I said coldly. But you still haven't answered my question. What are you doing here, she sighed, a dramatic, practiced gesture. I came to apologize. I was harsh with you, Raven. Too harsh. I see that now. You're talented, and I should have supported you. In my past life, those words would have been like water in the desert. I would have fallen into her RMS, grateful for her validation, desperate for her love. But I had learned the truth about my mother. She only came around when she wanted something. What do you want, mother? Her smile flickered. Can't a mother just want to reconnect with her daughter? Not you, I said. You only show up when you need something. So what is it, money, a favor, a chance to use me for your own benefit? She flinched, a tiny crack in her perfect facade. That's a terrible thing to say. It's the truth. You cut me off when I chose my career. You told me I was dead to you. And now, suddenly, you want to be a part of my life. What changed? She was silent for a moment, her eyes rooting away from mine. Then she said, I heard you're negotiating with Sterling Records. That's a huge deal, Raven. Life-changing money. I just thought I could help. I've always been good with numbers, you know that. I could make sure you don't get cheated. I laughed, a bitter harsh sound. You want to help me? You who told me I was a disgrace to the family name, you, who left me with nothing when I needed you most. I made a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. I was wrong. I see that now. Please, Raven, let me make it up to you. I shook my head, the anger rising in my chest. You had your chance. You had 100 chances. And you threw them all away. You're not here to help me. You're here to get your claws into my money before anyone else can. Her face hardened, the mask of remorse slipping away. You're being dramatic. I'm your mother. I have a right. You have no rights, I interrupted. Not anymore. You gave those up when you disowned me. So go back to whatever life you've built without me. I don't need you. I've never needed you. She stared at me, her eyes cold and harrowed. You'll regret this, Raven. You think you can do this alone, you're nothing. A nobody with a pretty voice and a dream. And dreams don't pay the bills. Watch me, I said, and walked past her into my building. That I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back, I would see the hurt on her face, and a part of me would still sourit. A part of me that was still the naive girl who had wanted her mother's approval. But that girl was gone. I had killed her myself. That my apartment was small and cramped, filled with furniture I had bought at thrift stores and a work I had painted myself. But it was mine. I had paid for it with my own money, rented through my own hard work. And no one could take that away from me. That I set the contract on the kitchen table, and opened a bottle of cheap wine. The first sip was bitter, but I didn't see I needed something to steady my nerves, to quiet the voices in my head. That my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Hey bestie. How's the contract signing going? Can't wait to celebrate with you. I read at the message, my fingers itching to type a response. In my past life, I would have been thrilled. Chloe was always so supportive, always so encouraging. But now I knew the truth. She was only supportive because my success would benefit her. That I typed back. Still negotiating. I'll let you know when it's done. Chloe's response came almost immediately. Great. Can't wait to hear all about it. Also, Ethan's been asking about you. He can't stop talking about your performance. Of course he was. He was already circling, already preparing to sink his claws into me. In my past life, I had been flattered by his attention. Now I felt nothing but disgust. I put the phone down and turned my attention to the contract. It was long and dense, filled with legal jargon that made my eyes cross. But I forced myself to read every word, to understand every clause. I couldn't afford to miss anything. 3 hours later I finished. My eyes were burning, my head throbbing, but I had done it. I had read the entire contract, and it was exactly what Julian had promised. Fair, transparent, and generous. But there was one thing I didn't understand. A clause buried in the fine print that seemed to have nothing to do with the music industry. It referenced a collaborative partnership that extended beyond creative work, something about Shaw-Red investments and joint ventures. That I called Julian immediately. He answered on the first ring. Raven, you've read the contract. I have, I said. And I have a question. What's this about a collaborative partnership that's not standard for a record deal? He was silent for a moment. Then he said, I should have been more upfront with you. This isn't just a record deal, Raven. It's a business partnership. I want you to be more than just an artist for my label. I want you to be my partner in the investment wing of Sterling Enterprises. I dropped the phone. What, why? Because I believe in you, he said simply. I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I've never seen anyone like you. You have talent, yes. But more than that, you have vision. You see things other people miss. And I think together, we could build something extraordinary. I was speechless. In my past life, I had been used and discarded by everyone I trusted. And now this man, a billionaire who had everything, was offering me a true partnership. Why me? I whispered. There are 100 people more qualified. Because you're a survivor, he interrupted. I know what you've been through, Raven. I know about Ethan. I know about Chloe. I know about your mother. And I know you're still standing. That's not luck. That's strength. And that's what I need in a partner. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't cry. Not now. Not ever again. Fine, I said, my voice steady. I'll sign. But I have one condition. Name it. Help me take them down. Ethan, Chloe, anyone who tries to hurt me. I want them to lose everything they tried to steal from me. There was a long pause. When Julian spoke again, His voice was low and serious. That's a dangerous path, Raven. Revenge has a way of consuming people. I know, I said. But I've already been consumed. I've already been destroyed. There's nothing left to take from me. Now I'm the one who takes. Another pause. Then, all right. I'll help you. But on one condition of my own. What? When this is over, when they're broken and you've gotten your justice, you let go of the anger. You let yourself heal. You let yourself be happy. I laughed, a hollow, empty sound. I don't know if I remember how. Then I'll help you remember, he said. That's what partners do. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. I had just made a deal with the devil, or maybe with an angel. I wasn't sure which. But I knew one thing for certain. My life was about to change forever. The next morning, I signed the contract. The ink was still wet when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Raven HRT. The voice was cold and professional. This is Detective Chun from the NYPD. We need to ask you some questions about a car accident that occurred 2 years ago. The driver, a man named Americus Webb, has come 4-way RD with some disturbing allegations. My blood ran cold. Americus Webb was my former producer, the man Chloe had accused me of having an affair with. In my past life he had been a close friend and mentor. But I had died before I could learn the truth about him. Allegations, I repeated, my voice shaking. He claims you were the victim of a conspiracy. He has evidence that the accident that killed you was no accident. It was an assassination. My heart stopped. In my past life, I had died in the rain, hit by a car driven by Ethan's driver. But here, in this new timeline, Americus was still alive. And he was talking to the police. The accident that killed me, I repeated, my voice a whisper. But I'm not dead. Not yet, the detective said grimly. But someone tried to make sure you were. And we think we know who it was. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The truth was finally coming to light. Who, I demanded. Who was behind it? We're not at liberty to say yet, the detective said. But we'd like you to come in for a statement. And we'd like you to bring any evidence you might have. I thought about the text messages I had saved, the recordings I had made, the regretful documentation I had accumulated in this new life. I had been preparing for this moment even if I didn't know it. I'll be there, I said. I'll bring everything. I hung up the phone and read at the contract on the table. The ink was dry. The deal was done. And now, the war was about to begin. I looked out the window at the city skyline, feeling the cold fire of vengeance burning in my chest. Julian Sterling had promised to help me. Americus Webb was talking to the police. Chloe and Ethan had no idea what was coming for them. And the best part, I was just getting route. The NYPD precinct was a gray labyrinth of fluorescent lighting and stale coffee. The kind of place where hope came to die. I sat in a small interview room, my hands folded on the red metal table, and waited for Detective Chun to arrive. The folder I had brought was thick, filled with years of documentation I had painstakingly gathered in this new timeline. Screenshots of texts, financial records, audio recordings of conversations I had secretly captured. I had been preparing for war before I even knew I was fighting one. The door opened, and a woman in her late 40s walked in. She was sharp featured, with keen eyes that missed nothing and a no-nonsense demeanor that commanded respect. She set a file on the table and sat down across from me. Miss Hart, thank you for coming in. She studied me for a moment, her gaze assessing. I have to say, you look remarkably calm for someone who's been told they were nearly murdered. I've had time to process, I said, which was technically true. And I've been expecting this. Americus Webb contacted me a few weeks ago. He said he had information about the accident. Detective Chun raised an eyebrow. Americus Webb, your former producer. The man who was accused of having an affair with you. The accusation was false, I said flatly. It was spread by Chloe Dawson to ruin my reputation and isolate me from my support system. Americus is a married man with children. He was a mentor to me. Nothing more. Chun nodded slowly, flipping open the file. Mr. Webb came to us with a recorded conversation he had with a man named Thomas Bell. Do you know that name? I shook my head. Should I? He was Ethan Price's driver. The man behind the wheel of the car that hit you. My stomach churned, but I kept my expression neutral. In my past life, I had seen Thomas's face in that split second before impact. I had known even then that it was no accident. But it confirmed, it spoken aloud in this cold official room, made it real in a way I hadn't fully prepared for. What did Thomas say? I asked, my voice steady. He confessed to the entire conspiracy, Chun said. He claims Ethan Price paid him $50,000 to make sure you died. He also claims that Chloe Dawson and your mother were involved in the planning. My mother? I had suspected, but it confirmed was a knife to the chest. She had stood in the ballroom, her hand on Ethan's arm, and watched me walk to my death. She had been part of it all along. That Evelyn Hart is a co-conspirator, I said. And it wasn't a question. Chun's eyes flickered with something that might have been sympathy. According to Thomas, she provided the vehicle. She had access to a fleet of cars through her business connections. The sedan that hit you was registered to a company she owned. I closed my eyes, letting the information wash over me. My mother, the woman who had given birth to me, had helped orchestrate my death. She had sold me out for what money, revenge, the satisfaction of proving she was right about me. What do you need from me? I asked, opening my eyes. Your statement, Chun said. And any evidence you have. We have Thomas's testimony, but we need corroboration. We need to build a case that's airtight. These people are powerful. They have resources. They'll fight back. I slid the folder across the table. It's all in there. Recordings, texts, financial records. I've been documenting everything for months. I knew something was wrong, even if I couldn't prove it. Chen opened the folder and began flipping through the pages. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to genuine shock as she scanned the documents. This is extensive. How did you get all of this? I learned to pay attention, I said. And I learned to protect myself. She looked up at me, her eyes sharp. Miss Hart, I have to ask. Were you aware of the conspiracy before the accident? Did you have any reason to suspect your life was in danger? I hesitated. The truth was complicated. In my past life, I had been blind. In this life, I had the benefit of knowledge I couldn't explain. But I couldn't tell Chen that I suspected something. I said ruefully. There were too many coincidences. Too many things that didn't add up. I root gathering evidence in case I ever needed it. Chen nodded slowly, accepting the explanation. You're very smart, Miss Hart. Most people in your position would have tried to forget, to move on. You prepared. That takes courage. It takes survival instinct, I corrected. And I've been surviving for a long time. She stood up, extending her hand. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, I'd advise you to be careful. These people don't know Thomas has talked. When they find out, they might try to silence him. And they might come after you. I'm counting on it, I said, shaking her hand. Let them come. I'll be ready. The call came 3 days later. I was in Julian's office, reviewing the first draft of my debut album, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered it, expecting Chun with an update. Instead, I heard a familiar voice, sharp and bitter. Raven. We need to talk. My mother. My blood went cold, but I kept my voice steady. There's nothing to talk about. Don't hang up. Her voice cracked, a sound I had never heard from her before. Please. I know about the investigation. I know Thomas talked. I'm in trouble, Raven. Big trouble. Good, I said flatly. You deserve it. Please. The word was a sob, raw and desperate. I'm your mother. I raised you. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing. I interrupted, my voice rising. You took everything from me. My self-esteem, my confidence, my fitira. You tried to take my life. You don't get to play the victim now. I was red, she said, her voice trembling. Ethan. He manipulated me. He told me you were going to cut me out of your life completely. He said if I helped him, he would make sure I was taken care of. I was weak. I was stupid. But I didn't want you dead. You didn't try to stop it, I said. You handed them the keys. You stood in that ballroom and watched them destroy me. And you smiled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Raven. Please. I'll do anything. I'll testify against them. I'll tell the truth. Just don't let me go to prison. I closed my eyes, the rage and grief warring inside me. In my past life, I had wanted nothing more than my mother's love and approval. Now she was begging for my mercy and I felt, nothing, I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Julian was watching me from across the room, his expression unreadable. That was your mother? Yes. What did she want? To save herself, I said. She offered to testify against Ethan and Chloe in exchange for leniency. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, Are you going to help her? I looked at him, at the man who had given me a chance when no one else would. I don't know. Part of me wants to see her rot in prison. But the other part is tired, Julian. Tired of carrying all this anger. Then let it go, he said gently. Not for her. For yourself. You've been carrying the weight of their betrayal for so long, it's consumed you. But you're free now. You don't have to be defined by what they did to you. I felt TRS prick at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I don't know how to let go. I've been holding on to this for so long, it feels like part of me. Then let me help you, he said, stepping closer. Let me show you what it's like to live without the weight of the past. You deserve that, Raven. You deserve to be happy. He was so close I could smell his cologne, a faint masculine scent that made my heart race. I looked into his eyes and saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine série. And maybe something more. Julian. I asked root, but he cut me off. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, he said. I'm just telling you what you deserve. The rest is up to you. I nodded, unable to speak. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to hope. 2 weeks later, the arrests were made. Ethan Price was taken into custody at his law firm, his colleagues watching in shock as the police let him out in handcuffs. Chloe Dawson was arrested at her apartment, her face a mask of disbelief. And my mother, Evelyn Hart, surrendered herself voluntarily, her lawyer promising she would cooperate fully with the prosecution. I watched the news coverage from Julian's penthouse, a glass of wine in my hand. The talking heads were speculating about the scandal, about the betrayal, about the woman who had survived it all. They're calling you a survivor, Julian said, sitting down beside me. A hero. I don't feel like a hero, I said. I feel like a ghost who finally got justice. Justice is just the beginning, he said. Now you get to live. Really live. Not just survive. I looked at him, at the man who had stood by me through all of it. He had been my rock, my champion, my partner. And somewhere along the way he had become something more. I think I'm ready to live, I said, and I meant it. He smiled, a warm, genuine smile that made my heart flutter. Then let's start with dinner. A real dinner. No contracts, no investigations, no revenge. Just two people getting to know each other. I laughed, the sound surprising me. Felt strange but good. That sounds perfect. The restaurant was elegant but intimate, the kind of place where celebrities could hide in plain sight. Julian had reserved a private booth, and we spent hours talking about everything and nothing. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could be myself. As the night drew to a close, he walked me to my door. I had a wonderful time, he said, his voice soft. I hope we can do this again. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. He leaned in, his lips brushing against my forehead. It was a gentle, chaste gesture, but it sent electricity through my veins. Good night, Raven, he said. Good night, Julian. I watched him walk away, my heart full and my mind at peace. The war was over. The revenge was complete. And for the first time in my life, I was truly freed up. But as I closed the door to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from a block numbered. You think this is over? You're wrong. This is just the beginning. Watch your back. My heart stopped. The threats weren't over. Someone was still out there, someone who hadn't been caught. Someone who wanted me dead. That I looked at the text, my blood running cold. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The text message from the blocked number had been sitting in my phone for 3 weeks. A constant reminder that the past was never truly dead. I had shown it to Detective Chun, who had traced it to a burner phone that had been purchased in a convenience store across town. No cameras, no witnesses, no trail. Whoever had sent it was C.A. Regretful. Methodical. Someone who had been watching me from the shadows. I sat in Julian's office, the city lights twinkling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Estia read at the message again. You think this is over? You're wrong. This is just the beginning. Watch your back. I should have seen this coming, I said, setting the phone down. Ethan and Chloe are in custody. My mother is COO parading with the prosecution. But there's someone else out there. Someone who was part of it from the beginning. Julian leaned forward, his elbows resting on his desk. You have a theory. I nodded slowly, the pieces clicking into place in my mind. Thomas Bell was the driver. But someone hired him. Someone with money and influence. Someone who knew about my mother's fleet of cars. Someone who had access to Ethan's schedule and Chloe's movements. Who? I took a deep breath, the answer forming on my lips like a bitter taste. Americus Webb. Julian's eyes widened. Your producer, the man who went to the police. He was the one who root the rumors about us. I said, the realization hitting me like a wave of ice water. He was the one who told Chloe I was sleeping with him. He fed her the information she used to destroy my reputation. And then he went to the police with a confession that conveniently pointed the finger at Ethan and Chloe. But why? Julian asked. What did he have to gain? I thought back to my past life, to the months leading up to my death. Americus had been my mentor, my confidant, the man I trusted above all others. But he had also been the one who controlled my access to the industry. He had managed my contracts, my royalties, my public image. And when I had root to question his decisions, when I had root to assert my independence, he had turned on me to control, I said softly. He wanted to control me. He wanted to own my talent, my voice, my entire career. And when he realized he was losing that control, he decided to destroy me. Julian was silent for a long moment. Then he said, you have to go to the police. You have to tell them what you suspect. I know, I said. But I need proof. Americus is a SMART man. He covered his tracks well. If I go to Chin with nothing but a theory, she'll dismiss it. Then we find the proof, Julian said, his voice firm. Together. The investigation took another 2 weeks. Julian's team of private investigators dug into Americus Webb's financial records, his communications, his movements. And finally, they found what we were looking for. A series of encrypted messages between Americus and a number that matched the burner phone. The messages were incriminating, detailed discussions of the plan, the payment, the cover-up. I took the evidence to Detective Chun, who immediately opened a new investigation. Americus was arrested at his home, his face a mask of shock as the police led him away. He had thought he was untouchable, that his connections and his money would protect him. He had been wronged. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming. Ethan and Chloe were convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. Their sentences lengthy and severe. Evelyn Hart was given a reduced sentence in exchange for her testimony, her voice breaking as she recounted her role in the plot. And Americus Webb, the man who had orchestrated it all, was sentenced to life in prison. I sat in the gallery, watching as the judge read the verdicts, and felt a strange sense of emptiness. I had gotten my revenge. The people who had betrayed me were being punished. But it didn't make me feel the way I had expected. It didn't fill the void inside me. After the trial, I walked out of the courthouse and into the crisp autumn air. The leaves were falling, repeating the ground in shades of gold and red. I stood on the steps, my eyes closed, and let the breeze wash over me. Are you okay? Julian's voice was soft, his hand finding mine. I opened my eyes and looked at him, at the man who had stood by me through everything. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me feels relieved, but part of me feels lost. I've been fighting for so long. I don't know who I am without the fight. He squeezed my hand gently. Then you'll figure it out. One step at a time. I'll be there with you. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. I know you will. We walked down the steps together, the courthouse fading behind us. I didn't look back. I was done with the past. I was ready to move forward. The next morning, I woke up in Julian's penthouse, the morning light streaming through the windows. He was still asleep, his arm draped over my waist, his breathing slow and even. I watched him for a moment, marveling at how different my life had become. That I slipped out of bed and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. The skyline was beautiful, a testament to human ambition and resilience. I had been part of that ambition once, before I had been torn down by the people I trusted. But I was rebuilding now, piece by piece, brick by brick. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, expecting a text from Julian's assistant or a notification about the album. Instead, I saw a message from an unfamiliar number. Congratulations on the trial. You deserve this victory. But remember, the world is full of people who will try to tear you down. Don't let your guard down. And never forget where you came from. I read at the message, my heart racing. The sender's name was a pseudonym. The Reborn. I didn't recognize it, but something about the message felt familiar. Like a memory I couldn't quite grasp. I read it again, my mind racing. The Reborn. The word echoed in my head, triggering a fragment of a memory from my past life. And then I remembered that in my past life, there had been a man who worked in the background of the music industry, a figure who had been a mentor to Marcus Webb. He had been a shadow, a ghost, a person who operated from the shadows. He had been called the Reborn because he cultivated talent, nurtured it, and then harvested it for his own benefit. That I had never met him. But I had heard whispers about him. Rumors that he was connected to the highest echelons of the entertainment industry, that he had made and destroyed more careers than anyone could count. And now he was reaching out to me. That I showed the message to Julian when he woke up. He read it carefully, his expression keening. The Reborn. I've heard that name before. He's a myth, a legend. But if he's real, I said. And he's watching me. He knew about the trial. He knew about everything. Julian set the phone down, his eyes locking with mine. What are you going to do? I thought about it for a long moment. The old Raven would have been terrified, paralyzed by the threat of someone new entering the picture. The old Raven would have hidden, would have tried to escape. But I wasn't the old Raven anymore. That I smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. I'm going to find him. I'm going to figure out who he is and what he wants. And then I'm going to decide whether he's a threat or an opportunity. Julian studied me, his expression shifting from concern to something like admiration. You're not afraid. Terrified, I admitted. But I've been terrified before. And I survived. I'll survive this too. He reached out and took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Then we'll do it together. Whatever it takes. I leaned in and kissed him, a soft, tender kiss that held a promise of the future. When I pulled back, I was smiling. The album is almost finished, I said. I have a tour to plan, a career to build, and a life to live. I'm not going to let some shadow figure distract me from that. But I'm also not going to ignore him. If he wants to reach out, then I'll be ready to respond. Julian laughed, a rich sound. You are the most incredible woman I have ever met. Raven HR. I know, I said, grinning. Now get dressed. We have a meeting with the label in 2 hours. The meeting was productive, the label executives thrilled with the album I had produced. They were already planning the marketing campaign, the tour dates, the press appearances. It was everything I had dreamed of in my past life. And more. But as I walked out of the meeting, I felt a strange sense of disquiet. The Reborn's message lingered in my mind, a reminder that the past was never truly behind me. I would have to deal with him eventually. But not today. Today, I was going to celebrate. Julian took me to the rooftop of his building, where a private Reborn had been cultivated in the heart of the city. The flowers were in bloom, their colors vibrant and beautiful. We walked through the paths, the smell of roses and lavender filling the air. This is incredible, I said, looking around. I had no idea this was here. I wanted it to be a surprise, Julian said. A place where you can come to think, to breathe, to remember that you're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what you do next. I turned to him, my heart full. You really believe that, don't you? I do, he said. And I believe in you. You're not just a survivor, Raven. You're a creator. You're a builder. You're going to build an empire. And I'm going to be there to watch you do it. I reached out and took his hand, my fingers intertwining with his. I love you, Julian. I never thought I could love anyone again. But you changed that. He smiled, his eyes soft. I love you too. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. We stood in the Reborn, the city sprawling below us, and I felt a sense of peace I had never experienced before. The past was behind me. The future was ahead. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to embrace it. But as I looked down at the street below, I saw a figure standing at the corner, watching the building. He was tall, nondescript, impossible to identify from this distance. But I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that he was the Reborn. He raised his hand in a wave, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I didn't tell Julian what I had seen. It was my burden to sorrow, my mystery to solve. But I knew one thing for certain. The Reborn was not done with me. And I was not done with him. This was not an ending. It was a beginning. A new chapter in a story that was far from over. I looked up at the sky, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink, and smiled. The world was full of possibilities, and I was ready to seize every single one of them. The end.